Good day, everyone. I am Dr. Twyla Williams, and I love research. Today, we are going to talk about qualitative Delphi design. I'm excited about that. So, as doctoral students, being well versed in various different types of designs is crucial for your academic success. And the Delphi method is a unique approach that combines expert insights with structured feedback, and it addresses complex research questions. Today, we will explore the principles of Delphi, its phases, applications, and practical considerations. So let's get started with that. First of all, let's understand the Delphi method. It is actually a structured communication technique. It originally comes from forecasting context, but it has been widely adapted for qualitative research, I will say. It involves this panel of experts who provides feedback on specific topics and issues through a series of iterative questionnaires or surveys, a series of those. Again, remember, not one time. There's a series of those. The goal of Delphi is to reach a consensus and get a deeper understanding of a topic by utilizing collective intelligence and insights of experts. And so that's what makes this design so interesting and unique. There's some key characteristics of the Delphi method, and these include anonymity. Okay, so experts, they're going to provide their opinions without revealing their identities. Okay, and which this reduces the influence of any dominant voices and encourages them to be honest in their responses. And so to ensure that you get some really, really good, rich data. Also, there's some iterative rounds, as I stated before. The process typically for Delphi involves multiple rounds, two, three, sometimes more. This is where the experts, they receive a summary of their previous responses, and then they can refine it and adjust their opinions as they go along. Another characteristic of Delphi is the controlled feedback component. Researchers analyze each round's feedback before presenting it to the experts. It allows for a well-organized or more of a systematic approach to gathering the insights. So basically, you get the feedback, the researcher then analyzes it, and then they send it back to the expert to give further information. So it's this iterative cycling that goes along. So when you hear Delphi, you may have heard of it associated with quantitative method. And we are talking about qualitative method in this class. So why would we do that? Well, Delphi can be both quantitative and qualitative. But for this course, we're going to talk about it in the context of qualitative. And so in qualitative Delphi research, the emphasis is on generating some rich descriptive insights rather than getting the numerical data. And so as such, it is considered the qualitative flip side of Delphi other than the quantitative side. The qualitative Delphi approach, another thing I can say about that is that it allows researchers to explore those complex issues that we like to use as our research questions. It looks at social phenomena, policy development, expert opinions, or even emergent trends that you can get from professionals. For instance, while a quantitative Delphi, it might aim to quantify the likelihood of a future event. Um, the actual qualitative Delphi would take that same type of topic and it would capture the depth of understanding, the perceptions, the insights from the experts on a particular issue. And so you can kind of see the difference of the focus there. Same process, but the intent, whether it be statistical or qualitative, those are the differences there. And so when we're designing a qualitative Delphi study, there's some steps that we need to think about in this process. First of all, when we're designing the research problem, we need to clearly articulate the research problem or question that we wish to explore and make sure that it's tied to a very well-defined issue. Okay. This is going to guide your selection of your experts and the information that you're trying to get in your questionnaires. And so you need to make sure that it's very well defined and that you have a panel of experts that can be attached to that particular research question in order to be able to collect that data. Are they available to you? What type of experts will you need to obtain? And is it doable and feasible for you to be able to get to these people? Selecting that expert panel, we need to, again, what I said, identify and recruit from a diverse pool of experts who possess some knowledge that's relative to your topic. They should have some experience in the topic. And you want to make sure that you aim for a balance between breadth and depth of expertise. Considering factors like the background, years of experience, geographical diversity, demographic diversity, if applicable. So make sure that you have a balance there when you're selecting your expert panel. Another thing when you're designing the study is thinking about developing that initial questionnaire. Very key, because remember, that is a data source that's going to go back and forth several times. And so you need to craft some initial open-ended questions to gather the experts' opinions, their beliefs, or their experiences related to the topic or the research question. And then you can ask some broad questions, open-ended questions that encourage in-depth responses and allow the participants to articulate their thoughts freely. And so you can start off with that, but make sure those questions are solid. The first round that you send off, you would distribute that initial questionnaire to your expert panel. And that is one way you also will ensure clarity in your instructions and provide a timeline for their responses. And after receiving those responses, you can then analyze the data to identify the common themes, trends, or varying perspectives that you're going to get back from the persons in your expert panel. Another thing when designing that descriptive Delphi study is create the follow-up questionnaires, okay? You're going to develop some subsequent questionnaires after the original one, and it's going to summarize that feedback and the insights that you gathered in the previous rounds, and pose some targeted questions based on their expert responses. They give you the guides of what you need to do when making these follow-up questionnaires, and it will stimulate some further discussion and refine some of the ideas that you're getting in that data collection. We need to also take into consideration in designing the iterative rounds that I've talked about a few minutes ago. We need to continue to process for 2 or 3 additional rounds, no matter what. We need to adjust our questions based on the prior feedback. We need to aim for a deeper exploration of the emerging themes when identifying areas of consensus or disagreement, just as important among the experts on your panel. And then finally, we need to think about the analysis and consensus building piece when it comes to a Delphi. After having all of these rounds of data collection and refining and sending out another questionnaire, refining, sending out another questionnaire, we need to conduct a final analysis of these responses. And so again, we're looking for those common themes, peculiar insights, things that might be a little off, and an overall consensus that's been reached by the expert panel as a whole. And so that's your job as a researcher when it comes to Delphi. In the data analysis piece for Delphi, we're going to look at some of the actual analysis techniques that are employed for this method. Of course, thematic analysis, we keep saying that for most of our qualitative designs, and that's looking at the codes and the categories and the themes and grouping those similar responses together and making it easier to understand the common viewpoints of different or divergent opinions and bringing those together. We also look at content analysis because remember, we're having these questionnaires go back and forth, and we want to utilize content analysis to be able to quantify how frequently certain themes are coming up or concepts, and how these are emerging across the actual repetitions of data collection, and if it's relevant, and do this when we keep the focus on making sure we ensure some qualitative richness while we're doing that, okay? And then another thing that we can think about when we're collecting data for a qualitative Delphi study is that we need to have that consensual validation. And that's ensuring that our conclusions are actually reflective of what the expert community, their perspectives actually are. And this involves us validating the findings through recurrent reviews and ensuring alignment with the input from the panel. And we have to cross-check ourselves continually to make sure that that is occurring. There are some practical considerations when we are conducting a qualitative Delphi study. Of course, we always have to think about that ethical consideration. We definitely have to have that IRB approval, even though we're dealing with experts. We need to ensure that informed consent is in place. We need to maintain that anonymity that we talked about. There's a way to construct a study for IRB where it is anonymous, and this needs to happen here, even though you're going back and forth with them. Maintain anonymity, and we need to allow participants to withdraw anytime during the study. They may decide at round 2 or 3 they don't want to be a part, and so you have to account for that. That very well may happen. We also need to think about data management. And so we have to organize this data pretty efficiently for analysis because we're getting so many rounds of it. And we need to consider maybe using some data analysis software to help keep track of that. You know, there's several out there, and that's going to help you with your coding and your thematic extraction when you get to that piece. So you probably need a really good management system here for data because you're getting it back and forth so many times. And then, of course, time management. When we're doing a Delphi, there's a commitment here, time frame, because think about each round of the Delphi process. And we need to communicate some really realistic timelines when we're thinking about this, and make sure that the expert panel participants have that kind of time to actually give you, because it's a commitment from them as well as you. So when we are presenting our findings in qualitative Delphi, we need to think about some things that will help us do that more effectively. First of all, those contextualizing the findings. I've spoken to you that about before. And that's when we situate our findings within the broader context, discussing the implications and contributions to the field. We need to illustrate key insights using quotes, paraphrasing insights from the expert responses, and highlight those key themes that we see emerging out of the research. And this is going to add some credibility and authenticity to your results, okay, because you're actually quoting those in there. And then, of course, those recommendations for future research. Based on your findings, offer some actionable recommendations or insights for practitioners, policymakers, or future research directions for this particular field or topic that you are studying. In conclusion, the qualitative Delphi design, it's a powerful design. It captures expert insights. It builds consensus around a complex research question. It can be quite creative when you use Delphi method. If you follow what we talked about there, if you have an iterative process in place, that you're keeping track of your data really well, value your participant contributions, you can produce a really meaningful study that can, again, advance the knowledge in your field. So thank you for participating today in some basics in ethnography. And again, I am Dr. Twyla Williams. Until next week.